Well, I wish I had this when I first started Archviz. So while I was making this thumbnail for the previous YouTube video, it kind of dawned on me how good our new asset manager is. So this is our new asset manager. And if you guys don't know what this is about, there's been a little update. So I thought I'd tell you guys what's new. Not only is this new add-on incredibly powerful, but you can now get access to every single asset for only $17, which is incredibly good value for what you get. So what's changed? So as you can immediately see, if we do update a product on our website, we can now see an update icon. So if you've already downloaded it, it will then say update, and then you can download that. Now, as I am currently living my life through a VPN, my download speed isn't the best, but okay, that's not going too bad actually. So that's downloading perfectly fine. So that will then replace that folder, and then that gets updated. So this is incredibly useful for things like geometry node systems. When these geometry node systems are basically their own computer program, they are so complicated with so many moving parts, we often have updates that need to be pushed to our users. So by having this update option is incredibly useful. So that's now available. Now we also have the local asset manager. So we have the option for our users to, of course, be able to add their own library. So we didn't really want to just lock this off just to our IMS users, because we do think that having a asset manager like this is incredibly useful for a lot of people. That's why we've merged them two together. So if you don't have IMS, you can still make use of this if you wanted to. And this allows you to add your own assets. Now I'll go over in a minute how you actually add them, but you can add basically any folder, and it'll basically use your folder structure to create the categories for you. Now I do know some people will be saying, well, why don't you just use the asset browser? Now, while the asset browser is very powerful, there's some things which I really don't like about it. So a lot of our users, especially in architecture visualization, one of the biggest parts of your career will be getting assets from other sources, because time is money and other people will be creating the assets that you need. Now you'll have downloaded and categorized thousands and thousands of items, but then to actually use your assets inside the asset browser, you have to open every single file, mark it as an asset, add it to the category, and then it will show up. However, most users, if they're downloading these libraries, they would have categorized them already, because you need a highly organized space to be able to correctly find all your assets. So why should I have to categorize them twice? That's kind of one of the biggest problems I have with this. So by having your asset manager just replicate exactly the folder structure that you already have, is just incredibly powerful. And not only that, for a lot of use cases, most, for example, if I go to decorations, most sets, it will come as a set, for example. And if I drop that in there, we can see that this has come in as separate parts. So all the items within that file is exactly all the items that I need. And that's generally how assets are packaged. It doesn't come with extra stuff that you don't need. So by just clicking append, it's already automatically added in every single item from that file, which is how I'd imagine it should work. However, for this to work correctly in the asset browser, you'd have to mark, for example, the collection as an asset like that, and then you'd have to drop that collection in. If I try to see what I've got here, so if I drop that in here, it will then add it as an object like this, and then I'd have to do make instances real. If I do make instances real, then down here I can then say keep hierarchy, and then it will keep that actual thing going on there, but I don't need this empty. So then we have the actual asset that we need, and we can actually continue. So I do believe there's probably actually an add-on which will allow you to drop them in without having to do that extra step, but I'm not too sure myself. Now, if all of these objects are parented to one object, then if I was to mark this object as an asset, only that object would be marked as an asset, and all the other objects would not be brought into the scene if you dragged it in, which I kind of feel like is a missing feature. Now, I do believe there is actually a workaround for that, because parenting doesn't work right now, but you can add a constraint. Now, I can't remember which one it is. I believe you can make Blender believe that the children are bones. So when you do mark the main object as an asset, the asset browser does then bring everything into the scene with it. So that seems a little bit funky. But anyway, due to these limitations, we simply just wanted an asset browser where we have all the folders containing all the assets, and any of these objects, we just simply click append, and then all the objects within that scene get brought in, and then it looks beautiful. Now, of course, if you do prefer the asset browser, I do believe a lot of people have merged their workflow into the asset browser way of thinking, then of course use the asset browser. But if you are a traditionalist like me and you just have all the folders already done and you just want to use them, then this asset manager is probably for you. So, and not only can you add your own assets, your materials, so we have materials tab. I'll go over these in a second. You also have a HDRI option as well. So I can just go to my interiors and I can select this one, and then it will add that HDRI. Oh, this one's the blurred option I created. Let me try one that you can actually see. Like this one here. So this HDRI has been added, and we also have this HDRI tool here. Once you've added this into the scene, so it will add a world. It will add the nodes here. Once that's added, you can then click any of these and you can actually adjust it. So we can adjust the sky strength, the diffuse strength, and reflection strength. And now basically all these parameters are quite useful in certain situations. So let's say you have, you want the HDRI to look more obvious through glass, or if the diffuse strength is too strong. Basically, there's just a bunch of parameters. And then one of my favorites is this background replace. So I could just replace the background really quickly with anything I like. And you can also input some textures there. And not only that, if I go to here, we can see ground projection. So what that is, if I click on this plane and then I set that to be a shadow catcher, and then I can click on this and set that to be 1, and it will basically plant that onto the ground. So there we go. So now the HDRI is basically acting like it's flat on the bottom, like a dome. And now it does get a little bit janky around the edges. It works best in outdoor scenes where the surrounding area is quite far away. But it's actually quite powerful, and it's actually quite fun to actually see your objects actually sitting on the HDRI itself. It looks a little bit uncanny in some cases, but that's basically that. Right, so what we see here, we got models, materials, geonodes, effects, and HDRIs. So how to set this up? If I go to assets and go to edit preferences, let's just search for iMesh. And this is version 1.2.0. If you go to paths, we can see here, we can actually add some of our own paths. So if I just remove this, let's just do a couple more. Now to make this work, what I'm gonna do is click this button, and then I'm just gonna select the directory which has all of the assets already created. Okay, so these are the objects created. Now I can say whether it's a model, a material, geometry nodes, and effects, or a HDRI. Now, you don't necessarily need to separate most of these out. Objects, geonodes, and effects, they will work in the same way. Basically, this will just be an object appending into the scene. Materials will work differently, in which that will apply the selected material onto the object. And HDRIs will obviously work by applying that to the world. Whereas, so these three will basically function in the same way, but sometimes it's just nice to keep them separated if you wanted to. Just like on our main tool, we do have them separated out. Now we do know that some users do already have them as separated folders anyway, so this will just allow you to choose that a bit easier. So now I've chosen it, I can say, is this an object or is this a material? So if I go to Materials tab, that will now show up here. And if I go to any of these objects, they're now going to show up as materials, so I can apply any of these materials to that. I can then choose, for example, I can set it to an asset. Let's go to the assets, and we can select it here, and now we can just append that into the scene. So now we have this. So how do the thumbnails show up? So let me show you how the folder structure should basically look like. Now the folder structures are very, very simple. Basically, all you need to do is have an object, such as a dot blend, and an image with the exact same name. And as long as they are together, they should show up in the asset managers. So for example, I have here assets. I have, let's go to architectural ceiling fans, and we have, if something's not working, just click refresh. And we have this asset here. Now, if I just copy and paste this, copy, paste, and then click refresh, now we have two here now as well, because you don't need to have a separate folder for every single dot blend. As long as you have a dot blend and a image next to each other, it will know to use those. So this should make it quite flexible. That's basically all you need to know. As long as those work and the actual dot blend knows where the actual textures are, then you can simply just add that to the scene and get rendering. So that's basically the updates this time. We are going to keep working on it. So if you do have any suggestions, please let us know and we can try to build that into it. If you are interested in accessing an entire library for only $17, then do check out iMesh, of course, as well. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys very soon.